As you can see from the VO2 data, there's a decrease from pre and post. So post is the thinner line and pre is the line with the squares on it. This shows how an athlete has adapted over the training period. The athlete will find their breathing rate at resting is lower. This then allows an athlete to increase their breathing rate more over the period of exercise. An athlete will also be able to breathe in more and in from each breath. This will mean an athlete can get more oxygen in and out in a minute, increasing ventilation as well. The post data therefore shows this has decreased as the athlete can breathe more oxygen in each breath, so breathing rate can therefore decrease. That's why the VO2 score is lower. So an athlete's resting breathing rate will decrease. This is because ventilation has increased. Therefore, they will be able to inspire more in each breath. Also, their tidal volume will have increased. During exercise, our breathing rate will increase, but we'll be able to stay at a lower rate than pre-training. Whilst taking part in steady state exercise, this is what really happens. This is basically because of the increase of ventilation and tidal volume. This means that we're breathing in more in one breath than, for example, an untrained athlete would in 2 breaths. Due to training over respiratory muscle, will become more strong and more refined, allowing an athlete to breathe quicker and deeper. This will be without the respiratory muscles fatiguing, so they'll become more and they'll have better muscular endurance. Muscles will also become more refined, so the movement, making it a smoother movement, so the lungs going in and out will be the ribs going in and out will be a smoother movement. This will aid an endurance athlete as they will be able to breathe without respiratory muscles fatiguing. Over time, our lung volumes will adapt, our tidal volume will increase. This is the amount we breathe in one breath. This increase will cause a decrease in resting breathing rate, as we are able to breathe in more in a single breath. During exercise, breathing rate will decrease as well as there's more oxygen needs to be delivered to working muscles. Due to the increase in tidal volume and the rate of which we are breathing this in, there is an increase in ventilation, which is the amount of air breathed in and out in 1 minute. Gases exchange becomes more efficient and more oxygen can be diffused into the blood at a faster rate. This allows an athlete to work out for longer as there is a large amount of oxygen going to working muscles as the alveoli is getting more oxygen diffused and into the bloodstream for working muscles. If an athlete can supply their working muscles with more oxygen, then they will be able to work for longer as there is more oxygen for them to use for their ATP reproduction. Oxygen deficit becomes lower. This is another adaptation, so when recovering this will be a quicker process. Oxygen deficit is the amount of oxygen that our bodies do not have when we finish exercising that we need, so then we have to obviously breathe faster to inspire this oxygen. This will therefore decrease when we have trained over a period of time, as we'll be able to take in more oxygen in less breaths, allowing us to recover faster as we are replacing the missing oxygen quicker. Due to the adaptations from training, the chance of respiratory diseases decreases. For example, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This is the disease which affects the lungs. Breathing becomes more difficult as airways tighten and become more narrow. The lungs therefore cannot get the oxygen in and out. This would therefore decrease breathing rate, tidal volume and ventilation. However, due to training, this becomes a smaller chance of getting it as your lungs are being used a lot during the training. There's also air flowing through the airways, so they will all be used. It keeps fresh air going through. Also, you're not as prone to it as you will be working out. So, slow oxidative fibers are our main one for the neuromuscular adaptation. So the slow oxidative fibers adapt due to aerobic exercise training, such as the continuous training. We will see an increase in the number of slow oxidative fibers. This will help an athlete to prevent fatigue and exercise for longer periods of time without the fatigue. Due to more muscle fibers, there are more muscle fibers under control by a motor unit. So therefore, when a motor unit is used, more power is created. This doesn't really aid aerobic exercise as much. However, there are times where you have to obviously exert more power, like if you're going uphill, like when you're jogging or something, or going over tricky terrain. So this can be very useful. Myoglobin stores also increase. This is the store of oxygen at the muscle. The increase of myoglobin allows an athlete to exercise for longer as there is already oxygen at working muscles. The increase in myoglobin aids slow oxidative muscles. This is because the slow oxidative muscle fibers rely on oxygen in order to contract, whereas fast glycolytic fibers use ATP and creatine. Mitochondria stores also increase. This benefits slow oxidative muscle fibers. Mitochondria help to create energy during aerobic glycolysis. This allows the cells to create more energy as the production has increased. This will therefore allow an athlete to exercise for longer as the aerobic glycolysis creates ATP, which allows movement. As mitochondria production has increased, more ATP will then therefore be created to make movements, so an athlete can work for a longer period of time when working at this intensity for this energy system. So moving on to energy systems. Due to aerobic training, such as continuous training, an enzyme production improves. This allows us to create enzymes at a faster rate. So aerobic enzymes such as glycogen, phosphorylase, phosphofructokinase, and phosphocreatine are all enzymes used in the energy systems. So these enzymes are produced at a faster rate and are therefore able to be created more before the lactic acid will inhibit the resynthesization and reproduction of these enzymes. So as lactic acid does this, then we have to either change the intensity we're working at or stop exercising. This will allow us to create more ATP before the lactic acid inhibits the production. This therefore will allow an athlete to exercise at a higher intensity for a longer period of time. Due to training, an athlete will increase their fat stores for activities such as long distance runs. This is because fats create more ATP than carbohydrates do. However, fats do take longer to be broken down, but they do create more ATP, so in the long run it creates more ATP for the time using the fats. Therefore, a well-trained athlete will use their fat stores as they will have undergone fat oxidation. This is where over a period of time of training an athlete will use their fat stores as they are broken down. Therefore, an athlete can exercise for longer and harder and more intense as they are creating more ATP from the fat than their carbohydrates they were using. Glycogen sparing is where an athlete uses their fat stores instead of their glycogen stores. This is because glycogen is not able to create as much ATP as fats are. Therefore, an athlete will be able to exercise for longer periods as they're using their fat stores and sparing their glycogen stores. This is a good adaptation of the energy systems, as it will really allow an athlete to exercise for a longer period as it is creating more ATP. Due to a buildup of lactic acid, an athlete will obviously become fatigued. This is because lactic acid prevents enzymes from being reproduced. Also does trigger like pain receptors in the body and stuff. For example, lactic acid buildup will prevent glycogen, phosphorylase, and phosphofructokinase being produced. This therefore means an athlete has to stop exercising or has to work at a lower intensity. As you can see from the data on the graph, in the light blue is the post data and the other two are the pre data. So the post data shows that the OBLA is higher, and this means that an athlete can work for longer before reaching OBLA at around 4 millimoles. This means an athlete can reach the higher levels of the lactate threshold test as they are able to deal with the lactic acid better. This therefore makes an athlete have a higher tolerance to lactic acid. So as you can see here, this is the pre-data, and they reach 4 millimoles around level 13, whereas post-data is around 15. So you can see the real difference they make when training. Okay, so skeletal adaptation. So this is due to aerobic training. This could cause some skeletal adaptations. This means an athlete may have greater range of movement at certain joints, such as a runner might have really good range of movements at the knee, for example. This will therefore allow an athlete to exercise without damaging their knee and causing any real injuries if they have good range of movement, so they won't tear any ligaments or overstretch it. Another adaptation may be the stronger ligaments, which support the joints. This will mean an athlete can exercise without risk of ligament damage, which can be a nasty injury, could be out for quite a long time with ligament damage. This could be as well that towards the end of a long run, an athlete is able to sprint to the finish line as they have stronger ligaments than their opponent. Obviously they don't know themselves if that guy's got weak ligaments, so they're going to sprint past him. But if you had stronger ligaments, you may well be able to therefore sprint an extra bit faster than your opponent. There aren't as many adaptations for the cardiovascular and respiratory systems for anaerobic fitness. It's because in some cases they're not really needed while doing the actual activity. For example, 100-meter sprint is not really enough time for the aerobic system to be used. However, they are used in the recovery period. Due to a training course of interval training or plyometric, for example, this may help aspects of the cardiovascular and respiratory systems though. One of these is a lower heart rate and breathing rate at rest. This will allow an athlete to have a larger heart rate range and breathing rate range as they are starting at a lower rate and can then increase to their max. This could also allow the athlete to work harder and for longer during an aerobic session. However, they will not really aid their anaerobic activities. Another adaptation will be cardiac hypertrophy. This is because the heart will need to pump blood to working muscles during anaerobic activities, so there will be a cardiac hypertrophy. This will allow blood to be pumped to working muscles at a faster rate. This will aid recovery as oxygen will need to be delivered to working muscles to remove waste products and remove oxygen deficit. So again, it really does help an athlete to sort of recover after their session. Respiratory muscle will also become a bit stronger and have greater muscular endurance, which will allow an athlete to exercise at a more intense level, as they will then be able to recover quicker and then be able to do it again. So this helps our interval training, as you have to keep repeating to get the little recovery sessions. This is due to the increase in the respiratory muscle. This will then mean the muscles will help to get the lungs up and out and then back in during inspiration and expiration. This will also mean the athlete can get more oxygen in, as the respiratory muscles will have better muscular endurance and will not fatigue as quickly. The cardiovascular and respiratory system will allow an athlete to recover at a faster rate, because breathing rate will increase due to training over a long period of time. As breathing rate increases, more oxygen can be inhaled or inspired. This will mean an athlete can recover at a faster rate as they are getting in more oxygen to recover oxygen deficit. Breathing rate increases and also allows for waste products such as carbon dioxide to be expired at a faster rate. An increase in heart rate will also be seen. This is because an athlete will need to get oxygen to working muscles in order to recover the oxygen deficit. This increase will be due to the training over time, and an athlete will be able to recover faster. The increase in heart rate will also mean an athlete can remove waste products quicker. This can reduce the pain of lactic acid and remove CO2. A neuromuscular adaptation. So one of these is fast glycolytic muscle fibers. This is known as hyperplasia. Hyperplasia is basically an increase in the muscle fibers, and as a result of this, an athlete will have a greater amount of muscle fibers. This will mean the athlete is able to work in their maximum for a slightly longer period of time. This also means the athlete can exert a greater force from these muscle fibers. This is because more muscle fibers will be controlled by a single motor unit. As this motor unit contracts, more muscle fibers will contract, and this therefore will create a greater force when it contracts. This would be great for a start of a 100-meter race, as then you can contract a lot of muscle fibers.